John Quinn, who's the Mid-County GDA, to discuss, I suppose, how 2021 unfolded and the many exciting projects to look forward to in the new year as well. So I suppose, first of all, John, it was probably a slow start to the year in terms of COVID, but it was great to get back into it, and I suppose it proved to be a very busy 2021 from your point of view.
Hi Gavin, yeah, it's great to talk to you. Yeah, I suppose like everyone, it was everything was a little bit up in the air, especially at the start of the year, where we didn't really know what activities we were going to be able to provide or what kind of interaction we were going to have with clubs and that. So I suppose from our own perspective at the start of the year, most of our interaction with the clubs was done online, which, although it helped, it's not ideal because there's nothing like meeting the lads face-to-face, the clubs face-to-face, and see what's going on and see what their requirements in that are. So yeah, it was difficult to start with, but having said that, I suppose we kind of got through a full programme at the same time, you know.
Yeah, and it was pretty helter-skelter when things got back, but I think you touched on it there about that face-to-face interaction, and I think we saw it in the first few weeks, John, when clubs started getting back on the pitches and meeting each other again. I suppose it's something, I suppose we won't take it for granted, I suppose, again.
No, and look, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the clubs are about, isn't it? It's about getting children and adults and that out onto the playing fields and promoting our games, and it's very hard to do that when you weren't in a position to actually go to the fields and that, and I suppose it was the uncertainty at times that, you'd arrange blitzes or something like that, and then you had to pull them because new restrictions came out or new guidelines. So that made it difficult for clubs as well. It made it difficult for their committees and secretaries, etc., to kind of be on top of their programmes and, drive forward.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And from your point of view then, John, looking after the mid-county area, you might give us an idea of what, I suppose, the area is and you're covering, I suppose, at the minute, and what the job, I suppose, entails.
Yeah, I suppose, like from my perspective, covering of the clubs, it starts, I suppose, nearest to the city would be Butlerstown, and you go as far as then as Rathcormac, St. Muller and Stradbally. So, and kind of all the areas in between, like Portlaw, Dunhill, and all around that areas. So that would be the main focus of my work, both primary schools in them areas and the clubs. And then I suppose on top of that, I was kind of assigned to look at different projects for the year as well, and set up a committee to look at that.
Absolutely, yeah, great stuff. And as you said, that school link as well, I suppose, particularly at primary school level, John, I suppose it's very important, I suppose, in terms of development for the game as well, I suppose, and it's important, I suppose, to have that link as well, I suppose, isn't it, going forward?
Yeah, I mean, ideally what we're in the schools is to promote the games. We do a little bit of coaching and that, but given the amount of schools that you would have to visit, you wouldn't get an awful lot of coaching into the kids. But it's I suppose it's more really about establishing an interest and establishing a link between the local clubs and the school. And that's where the real work will take place, when you can get the children down to the field. So really, I would kind of say it's to make sure that the kids are enjoying coming out here in the schoolyard, and that they start looking at maybe going and joining the club to continue whatever enjoyment they can get out of it. And that way then, once the club gets them in, they can build on it, and they can develop their skill network.
Yeah, great stuff. And you touched on the participation projects which you headed up yourself, John, this year. You might give us an idea of how that went and what were the standout ones from the summer of 2021?
Yeah, so I was kind of assigned special projects at the start of the year. So the first thing I did was form a committee, and I'd like to thank Liam Chasty, Déise Óg and Vinnie Welch, who came on board. And we kind of, I suppose, we sat down and we looked at different areas that we needed to address. We looked at assisting clubs on kind of promotion of their entry-level programmes. So that would have involved the Well Kids. Plus, we kind of started with getting information from all the clubs as to what their nursery programmes were, what time they held their nursery programmes, what ages. And then we kind of put together, I suppose, a form, is what you call it, with all the information on it. We got that into the local papers, the News and Star and the Munster Express in the city here, and the Leader and the Observer up the west. And it was really just to focus on parents who wouldn't have a traditional background in GA, mightn't be aware of what the club activities were, or mightn't be aware of what activities were, especially for the younger kids, the 4 and 5 year olds, and what entry-level programme was there. So we felt it would be a good way to promote that people picking up the local paper, they mightn't necessarily be following GA clubs on Twitter and that, but they would see it on the local paper, and once the contact number was there and the person to contact and the times and that, we felt that would be a good way to maybe just generate a little bit more recruitment. The other thing we looked at then, and this came out of the Waterford Strategic Plan, it was really kind of under the guidance of Fergal Hartley and Brian O'Halloran. We looked at the Well Kids programme. So the Well Kids programme is about introducing children to Gaelic games, but in a more fun environment that's not necessarily focused on the skill development at the young age, but really about bringing them in and making sure that they're having plenty of fun and they just want to come back to that. So we piloted 6 clubs, 2 in each of the divisions, 2 in the urban area, 2 in the mid-county and 2 in the west. And these clubs then, we gave them a support network of different activities, and we were in constant liaison with them. And one of the other things was the jerseys, so that Azuri came on board, and basically we got them to, in conjunction with the clubs, they looked at designing a jersey for the kids for each club, and this was a big hit. The kids seemed to love it. So that's something we would be looking at next year, 2022, of expanding and rolling it out to every club in the county. We learned a lot from the pilot projects and from the pilot clubs. We specifically kind of targeted various size clubs so that we weren't getting a picture of just a one size of a club. So, we went across the board. Like Tramore would be a big club in the mid-county area, whereas St. Molorans will be of a smaller base. So they'd have all had their own, I suppose, not so much difficulties, but they certainly would have their own attributes of what they could bring to it and what they needed and what their requirements were. So we'd be very, very happy with the way it has progressed. And as I said, the new year now, it's one of the big projects to drive that on. Hopefully every club will buy into it, and it'll be a busy year if they do,
Yeah, it certainly will indeed. And you mentioned Fergal Hartley there. I know he was talking about it last week and touched on, I suppose, making that Saturday morning, a real hub for the GA, and, getting the youngsters out to the field. And I suppose at that age, you want to kind of ease them into it, I suppose, John, as well as, I suppose, enjoying the activities and things like that.
Yeah, and we also want to make sure that the parents would feel comfortable, getting involved as well. Because not every parent and not every, child has any kind of tradition or any background in GA. And it's important. It's important for Waterford. It's important for all the clubs to make sure that the parents are comfortable as well, that they see what's going on. They're quite happy to send the children, but not only that, but that they would get involved themselves. And, we would provide the backup to them in terms of resources and whatever help they need, and we'll do workshops with the clubs and that, or whatever they require.
Great stuff.
So
great stuff.
That's a big thing.
Absolutely.
I suppose some of the other projects we looked at them was we looked at trying to identify activities that would kind of raise the profile of GA. So one of the things we came up with was a kind of a target game. It's a 3-dimensional target game that John Quinn designed and constructed, and we brought it around to the cool camps. I think you were at a couple of the cool camps yourself. You saw it in action.
That's right, yeah, brilliant, yeah.
And it was very popular. Very popular indeed. It's very unusual. It's not your usual the target game, and the kids really loved it. So again, we were a little bit restricted, I suppose, with COVID as to the amount of activities that we could go around with it. Our intention was to have it in public areas. But again, we were a little bit restricted on that. But certainly something that we look at in the new year. And it takes a little bit of time to construct it, but once you get the hang of it, you kind of put it together in about 20 minutes or 20-30 minutes. So yeah, we were very happy with that. We felt it worked well. We felt that the children really bought into it. And any time that kids kind of come up with a target game that they want to try and score goals, sure, they love it,
Yeah, it proved to be a big hit, I must say, and I'm sure a lot of people would have seen the videos circulating on social media during the summer as well. So I suppose overall, John, a busy year, and I suppose in the GA world, as a lot of people, be it volunteers or those employed, I suppose it's all go, as the fella says. It's straight back into it, and no doubt now you're already looking towards 2022, and hopefully, I suppose a clearer maybe programme or clearer structure of games and activities.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we are kind of dependent to a degree on what games programs can be implemented. We would hope, like everyone else, that restrictions are somewhat coming to an end, that we can sit down and put a games program in place. We had to cancel a couple of blitzes, we say, with Coming a Month School that we had organised to run with third and fourth classes. And literally it was just down to the situation where the schools couldn't allow their kids to go and mix with kids from other schools, and then transport became an issue because you'd have to maybe get 2 buses instead of 1 bus to allow the kids to go to it. So these are all factors that certainly would impact on us running the programme we'd like to run. But having said that, we probably got 80 to 90% of our programme done. So it wasn't bad given the year that was in it, and we would hope to drive on from that.
Yeah, super stuff, and a great effort by all the team as always. John the GDA's, Owen Brannock obviously heading it up, Owen Morrissey in his first year as coaching officer as well. Obviously these things, a lot of planning and a lot of work, I suppose, behind the scenes, which a lot of people don't see goes into this, I suppose, as well. And I suppose that's the the unselfishness, and I suppose the work behind the scenes often goes, I suppose, unnoticed.
I will look at that. I suppose that's the case of everything. The same goes on in the club. There's, you might have a couple of profile lads, but the work being done behind the scenes is always, instrumental and totally necessary, and for anything to work properly. So we'll start now. We'll sit down before Christmas and again early in the new year, and we'll try and draw out our programme, our schedules for the primary schools, the post-primary schools, the clubs, the visits, the well kids, and whatever other activities that come up, and whatever other projects come up. So yeah, it's always worth your while to do a good bit of planning and try and have the planning done properly. It eases you into it. And as I said, the schools in that, they look forward to us coming in. The kids look forward to it. And as much work as we can do with the clubs then, that's our aim.
Yeah, it won't be long coming around, as the fella says, 2022. Well, John, I know I'll be chatting to Dave and Barry as well later on, but I really appreciate you taking the call, and continued success and happy Christmas.
No, you're more than welcome, Gavin, and many happy returns